Ryan Rizzuti,
Yeah.
welcome.
It's nice to be on camera for once.
Ryan is the producer. In case you guys didn't know, he's been helping me produce it. He helps me edit and cut clips, and we've been working a little bit as a team. So it's been good to have Ryan help out, and now we've got him on the camera.
Yeah.
On the motherfucking camera, you can see his
fucking
big
camera.
ass ugly mug.
You see this motherfucker that was told that he looks just like Shrek from Shrek 2 when he becomes a human.
I did bring the green paint.
You did? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. That's what I was going to bark after this, so I was thinking if I did it as Shrek, that would get more tickets sold.
Are you actually barking after this?
Yeah, well, like a little bit after, like
Yeah.
7, 8 o'clock.
Okay. So how you been? How's your Christmas?
Good. Christmas was good. Was with the fam. My family mostly does like Christmas Eve. Mm-hmm. We're not big for doing stuff on Christmas Day. We mostly do stuff on Christmas Eve. And then Christmas Day, I was like with my friends a little bit. I saw Nosferatu. I saw a nice spooky horror movie. Perfect for Christmas.
Is it like a animation or is
No. So it's live action. Nosferatu is like the original Dracula. Mm-hmm. It's one of the most famous silent films. It was made like 102 years ago.
Wow.
And they didn't have the rights to Dracula, so in Germany they made a knockoff called Nosferatu. And it's super popular. It was in a joke in a SpongeBob episode. It's just been like super popular for years. And then Robert Eggers, the guy who did like The Witch and The Northman, does like a lot of gothic horror movies, was like, I'm gonna do a big budget version. And it's got like a great cast. And it's got like that great gothic horror. Everything feels like it's actually in the time, has that right atmosphere. Everything feels like it's lit by candlelight or sunlight, and like has that nice existential dread that you really want on a Christmas evening.
Nice. And did people die?
Oh, a lot of death.
That's
A lot
what
of
we want.
gruesome deaths.
That's all we want out of a Dracula movie. Was there any like Dracula fucking sex scenes?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you get some you get to see a lot of Dracula nudity. Dracula goes full frontal in this one.
Oh Jesus. Well, we
So-
don't need to see that. Well, we'd like to see the women.
No, you get both. You get
Okay.
both. You gotta have something for the guys and the girls. Somebody's got to
true.
be like, I'm really into. Just somebody said I look like Shrek. Somebody's got to look like Bill Skarsgård as Nosferatu.
That's true.
Somebody's
Yeah.
got to be into that.
We got to keep it a balanced playing field. A level playing field? Is that what it is?
Level playing field.
Level playing field. There
Level
we go.
playing field.
We got there, everybody. We got there. So what'd you get for Christmas? You get any presents?
Mostly this year, I now realize I've finally become an adult. I mostly got jeans
Okay.
and socks.
Okay.
And I feel like that's the transition when you're becoming an adult. Like it used to be video games and like movies and like camera equipment. And like as you get older, it changes and changes. And now I'm just fully on the jeans socks.
Well, that's nice. Do they get you the right size?
That's always a point of contention. And like I've lost weight this year. I've lost 25 pounds this year.
Shit.
Which I didn't weigh myself. I weighed myself in January, and then I weighed myself a week ago. Because if I looked at the scale at any time and it wasn't a number I liked, I would have like regressed.
What? So you didn't weigh yourself for a whole year?
I didn't weigh myself for an entire year. I knew I was getting better and I knew I was on the right track. I was just trying to stay consistent with it. And the more I stayed consistent with it, but like the way my brain works, if I looked at the scale and it was like, oh, I thought I weighed this, but I'm actually that, it would like demoralize me.
Shit.
Because that's been my issue when I've tried to lose weight in the past. So I'm like, let me try this where like, don't think about it.
Yeah.
Just focus on eating better and walking and exercise and don't think about the number on the scale. And I lost 25 pounds. So
Well done.
It worked out. But so like getting jeans, I like told them the size and they're like, are you sure this is the size? Are you sure? I got you extra big. I got you extra tall. I'm like, I'm not that big. I'm not that tall, guys. Like,
Fuck.
but it works out. You get a nice day at JCPenney where you get to go to the return lady and you make a friend.
Glass half full, Ryan.
You gotta be glass half full.
So, Ryan, you grew up in New York, didn't you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whereabouts?
I'm from Long Island, New York. I'm about an hour away by train.
Okay, cool. And you grew up with a dad that was a comedian.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, because you must have been exposed to comedy your whole life.
Yeah.
Was he always into comedy?
Yeah, so my dad was doing comedy before I was born. My dad was doing comedy in the 80s.
Right.
My dad, like, was doing comedy with people who then grew to be big comics. Like my dad's really good friends with Joey Cola, who in Long Island is like a living legend in the comedy scene, and he is been on Martha Stewart's show. He's on Drew Barrymore's show. He has been on Rosie O'Donnell's show. Jimmy Fallon was on Drew Barrymore's show and literally called out Joey, that Joey helped him put him on when nobody was putting him on, let him open for him and helped open doors for him. And like Joey was somebody that like my dad would always talk about and be like, this is my friend Joey that like is actually doing well. And like, like he had a lot of friends like that. And my dad he never got to that level. I think he got to a certain point where he decided to stop. And then he like was doing like start and stop. Like he had me and was focusing on like raising me and having a full-time job and doing all that. And then would do comedy when he could. Like he was working on like a radio show in the morning where like he would go to work at like 6 in the morning, would do this radio show at like 5 and then go right to work.
Wow.
And then would work, 8, 9 hours or 10 hours. I'm like, I don't know how he did it. And he would do that stuff. And then he ran, which I always knew about, but I've learned more now. Back in Long Island in like the late 90s, early 2000s, there were not a lot of open mics. There was like 2 or 3 open mics. And my dad ran like one of the most consistent open mics in my town for years. And there's a ton of like headlining comics that now are like, your father helped me. Your father had a show that I could go on when nobody else could.
Wow.
And like when you think of like New York City, we sneeze and we find an open mic. Like back then, there was very few to find. And my dad would do one out of a coffee shop like every week. And he would try to put everybody on, and they had audience, and like it kind of felt like the Grizzly Pear shows that we do. And like people like always talk about my dad in that way, and like my dad used to like give rides to a guy who then was in a bunch of Spike Lee movies, and like my dad's always had a hand, and like he helped someone who then like he gave them the rub that then helped them on. But my dad's like joke now is he's the longest running open mic comedian in Long Island. But he doesn't give himself the credit that he deserves. Like he's done shows, he's been able to book like rooms with like a good amount of people. He's done like theaters and stuff, and he's extremely funny. And I think I am the way I am because of him. And if it wasn't for him like pushing me with comedy, I don't think I would have done it. When I was 5 years old, my dad was doing a show at a Borders Books, and he put me on because I was like, I want to do time. So my first time like doing time was 5 years old at a show with like 30 people.
Fucking hell.
At a Borders Books. And
what is that, a bookshop?
Yeah, it's like a Barnes & Noble. Barnes & Noble bought Borders Books.
Okay.
So it's like a Barnes & Noble.
Right.
Like I did, that was my first show, and I had a bit where I used to wear a bunch of shirts, and I would act like I was getting hot, and I would start taking the shirts off. And then I had a bit all about Spider-Man that apparently killed. But you're 5 years old. You could say literally anything.
Yeah.
And people are going to laugh.
Really? Yeah, I can imagine.
But I did that. And then in middle school, I did like a talent show, and I did comedy. And like my dad was really happy with me and was always helping me and would take me to shows when I was a kid. Like my dad had this friend who was a ventriloquist who was an amazing ventriloquist and used to be like a Vegas like regular act. And my dad took me to see him when I was like 7 years old. And like he would always take me to meet these people and like would introduce them and talk to them. And I remember the first time I met Joey Cole was at Hershey Park. We were just at Hershey Park and Joey was doing a show and he happened to be there with his family. And like my dad always talked about him, but I had never met him. And then I met him and I'm like, oh my God, like he was like a celebrity me. Like he had a Comedy Central special. Like I was like, oh my God. My dad's like, oh yeah, that's just my buddy. I used to live with him. Like, in the 80s, like we're just friends.
Wow.
And like, my dad though, he wanted me to do comedy, but he also didn't want me to do comedy at the same time. Like he always wanted me to do comedy as like secondary to something else. Because I think because he was never successful with it, he was always like, don't do it. There's no money in it. There's no money in it.
Well, it makes sense for him to push you in that way because to start out, there is no money in it.
No.
You can't. You'd be a fool to go, I'm going to go do comedy full time and make a living out of it because it's just not going to happen. Unless you have some sort of TikTok or Instagram notoriety, then you may be able to do okay. But Yeah, that's so. I understand that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And like, I went to film school and like I have a film degree and everything. And I always wanted to get that kind of situated where I felt comfortable with myself with film. And then I wanted to do comedy. And I kind of, because I've been around it my whole life, I've been around the Long Island comedy scene, I know what that's like. I told my dad, I'm like, I think I have a plan. When I decide to do it, I'm going to go into the city and I'm going to focus on the city because I think that's where I want to do it. And my dad's like, no, that's what you should do. And that was when I told that to my dad's like, no, I think you should do this. I think he's like, you're about to turn 30. You're in the right headspace. You're not a kid anymore. Going into the city, if you're serious about it, I think you're going to be great at it. And my dad's come to see me do shows throughout this year because I really started taking it seriously in January. And then I started coming into the city in like May and then started doing regular shows probably at the beginning of the summer. My dad seen me from like a show I did the Long Island Laugh Off and I made it into like the top 30. My dad saw me that show, and then we and him did a show together at the beginning of this month.
Really?
And yeah,
That would have been cool.
yeah, no, we're gonna do more. We're gonna do a show together, and I'm gonna have you on it. I want to have a couple people on it.
Nice.
It's gonna be a fun show. I'm excited to like introduce my dad to all you guys.
Yeah, cool, man. That'd be great.
But yeah, no, he said to me, he's like, it's amazing how far you've come in just the 1 year. And like, he's like, I can tell that you actually paid attention to everything I told you about comedy for years. Because he used to give me comedy books. He used to give me like Zen and the Art of Stand-Up Comedy.
Wow.
And he would always give me like books from different, like I have a Mel Brooks book and I have a David Allen Greer book and I have the history of Saturday Night Live. And he would always try to like, even though he didn't want me to do it, he was always fostering that side of me. Because he's like, I want you to do it, but I know that it might fall in your face and I don't want you to like, you know, it's like that tough thing of being a parent and like you want your child to succeed, but you're afraid of the failure. And that's probably the thing that was holding him back. But now like
It's not really his decision to make after a while though, is it?
No.
It's where we're all big and ugly enough to make our own decisions.
And I am definitely both of those things.
You certainly are. But no, it's good, man. Okay, well that's good. So you're really starting comedy at 5 years old. That's really the baptism by fire, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's pretty fucking insane.
Yeah.
So you've grown up with this guy that's like half in, half out wanting you to do it, but you've sort of picked it up anyway, and you've gone and done your university degree. How was that? How was doing film? Did you do film in the city?
So I went to Five Towns College, which actually isn't in the Five Towns. It's in Dix Hills in Long Island.
Okay. We have brought this up. Dix Hills, everybody.
Hill of Dix.
It's got the Hill of Dix.
It's got a Hill of Dix.
Yeah.
It is a performing arts school. It's an art school. Our claim to fame is that Adam Levine went there from Maroon 5.
Right.
And so did one of the other members. And supposedly they named Maroon 5 after Five Towns College because it's Five Towns College and our school color is maroon.
Okay.
So, and they were under a different name and then they went to Five Towns and then they left. And then they became Maroon 5. So I think they've never actually admitted to it. But I've heard them say it on the radio. So I guess that's true.
Yeah.
But like we had a lot of big musician people, but then for my department, the department was actually founded by a guy named Saul Negrin, who was the head of the camera union in the city. And he was actually like the cameraman that filmed Christopher Reeves, like showing the Superman logo for the first time, like in the alleyway, the famous scene. And he worked on Coming to America and the show Kojak and so much stuff. And he kind of treated the school like a trade school. Like we were less a college and more of a trade school where like if I went to NYU, I'm not touching a camera until the third year, until I'm a junior. It's just all theory. At Five Towns, I had a camera my first day. It was a crappy camera, but like the only way you're going to learn in film is to trial by fire. You have to make bad stuff and learn how to work with people, how to look at your own stuff critically, how to realize this is bad. How do I make this better? It's all trial and error. You really have to learn through failure for filmmaking. So like Five Towns kind of gave me the tool for that. But at the same time, it's the weirdest college in the world. It's a refurbished middle school that they turned into a college.
Yeah, right.
At most, I think we had 1,200 kids. When I left, I think we had like 800. It's a square and then there's a long thing for the hallway that's kind of like a dick. So that's how it was situated. There were dorms. People dormed. I dormed at one point. There were people from all over the world. People from Jersey. People from I know I'm like all over the world. Jersey. But people from all over, and all of our partying was done in the parking lot.
Yeah, right.
It was like a tailgate at all times. And we were all smoking weed, we were all drinking, and it was like kind of like a thing where they knew we would do it there, but they were cool with it as long as we didn't bring it into the dorms, as long as we didn't bring it to other places and weren't doing anything really that wrong. And it was like a tailgate. And I brought friends there, and they're like, this is unlike any other college experience I've ever seen. I'm like, yeah, because no college is like hanging out in the parking lot on a Friday night is your normal thing.
That sounds fun.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun because you're going, people's cars. I'm walking around with a bong with a Thundercats logo on it. Like the running joke was I was the mayor because I knew everybody, and I would glad hand everybody. Like, hey, how's it going? How you doing, Pete? How's it going, Joey? How's it going, Junkie?
Jesus.
I have a friend named Junkie. That's not it. And the way he introduced to me was literally we were in a party, and he's like, oh, this is Junkie. And I was like drunk and high, and I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna remember your name. And he grabs my arm and he goes, just think like junkies. Like junkies. And I'm like, I'm never gonna forget your name.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna forget. I love that man. Junkie is one of the greatest people to ever live.
Really?
I love him.
There you go.
But it was weird. And then at one point, Sarah Silverman came to film a movie at our school.
Why your school in particular?
Because they need an elementary school. So my school subbed in for her child's elementary school in the film I Smile Back, which was Sarah Silverman trying to do like a dramatic movie.
Gotcha.
And at one point, she has a nervous breakdown and drives right into a pole in front of the school.
She's a comic, isn't she?
She's a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
Stand-up comedian. Yeah, Sarah Silverman program. Really great comic. She has a nervous breakdown, drives into a pole, which is the pole that we called Smoker's Pole, which everybody smoked weed at.
Nice.
And like people will watch that and be like, "Oh, look at this elementary school that is definitely not a college that people like have debauchery at."
Yeah. So was that school just for film?
No, so it was film, theater, music performance.
It was an art school.
Yeah, it was an art school. They started adding right after I left. They became like a D3 school, so they started having sports, and they started like doing more business stuff, and they're trying to become more of like a legitimate school. At one point, we almost lost our accreditation while I was there.
Wow.
We almost lost our accreditation, and they fired everybody from my department and replaced them with a bunch of people that had no idea what they were doing.
Why? What, teachers?
So yeah, they fired all my teachers.
Why?
So there was like one thing was like a scandal of like a teacher who may have been having an affair with a student. I don't want to get into that.
Is that not legal though? If I mean, obviously, I don't know what the college rules are, but a student would be over 18 years old. So
I think
can a teacher not have a relationship with a student?
It's more, you can't have a relationship with a student depending on the school and depending on like if it's your department.
Gotcha.
And like I don't know if you're in like a big, like if you're at NYU and a professor is dating a student that's in like a completely different department, I'm sure it wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, gotcha.
But it was like somebody in the same department. I don't want to get into that. But
Fair
then
enough.
there was that, and then there was like a big like fight between the head of my school and the head of my department. And the head of my department pretty much like was like, you can't fire me, I quit. And it was that sort of thing.
Right.
And then they brought in a bunch of people who had no idea what they're doing, people who like made bad wedding videos. We went from like people who worked on regular productions, worked with like Tim Burton, worked with Martin Scorsese, to people who like, oh, I make a wedding video.
Jesus Christ, that seems like
It was wild. The students revolted.
I bet they did.
They revolted. There's this Phil Russell, who's an awesome kid. He actually he knows Alec. From who does Judy's Ease. He went into a room. He was the head of our equipment room. He went into a room, was pretty much like, he's an idiot, you gotta fire him. He's an idiot, you gotta fire him. He's an idiot, you gotta fire him. We like him, and we kept that one teacher.
Jesus.
Whose name was Rizzuto, so no relation to me.
Right.
And he was awesome, and then they had to bring in other teachers, and then the school started to kind of reset itself. They had to oust the head of the school. It was a whole thing.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so what happened with you, like once you got your 4 years, I assume it was 4 years. What did you do for work after that?
So a lot of it was working in restaurants. Like they tell you when you're in school, it is extremely hard to get a job in film. It's really a lot of who you know. It's a lot of, luck. It's a lot of busting your ass for little to no money, working crazy hours.
Yeah.
And that's why doing comedy to me, I'm like, oh, well, I already went through this once, so I can do it again.
Yeah.
So I was pretty much doing like any production assistant job I can get, which is lowest rung on the totem pole on a set. I did a lot of stuff for Showtime Sports for boxing events. I can actually say I'm the only person on your podcast that's been in the ring with Floyd Mayweather.
Wow.
And Floyd Mayweather screamed in my face because I was holding the replay monitor and the camera was next to me, not because I did anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. That's cool.
So, yeah, no, I met a lot of people through that. I actually met Dave Chappelle because he was at an event.
Wow.
And I was in a hallway with just me and Dave Chappelle, and I was like, I'm never going to have this opportunity. And I turned to him, and I'm like, you're the greatest of all time. And he was so nice.
Really?
He was so nice. He was like, thank you so much. Like, I really appreciate that. You didn't have to say that. Thank you. And, like, he went off, and, like, that was such a great job because it was, you work at Barclays Center, and, like, you're at Barclays Center for, like, 14 hours the day before and 14 hours the day of the fight. And you're setting everything up. You're walking through the catacombs of the Barclays Center. You're setting up like where Deontay Wilder is gonna fight and like you're setting up like the locker room. You're in the Nets locker room, and I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan, so like that was really cool for me. Getting to be in the locker room, seeing how all this stuff is done, getting to be behind the scenes, getting to see how a show is run, getting to learn like the run a show. I had to sit in the production truck and watch how they like live edit the show and like, you know, go for camera 1, get the graphic ready for on 3, you know, all that like super high intensity and they're screaming
God,
at
there must
each
be
other.
so much organization involved.
Oh.
Are these companies that do the productions for these fights or sports events, are they external companies basically subcontracted in to set up in these places?
So,
or does, for example, does Madison Square Garden have their own production company that will do all the Madison Square Garden events?
So Madison Square Garden does have a production company because they do the Rangers games and they do the Knicks games themselves. Like they have an MSG channel, and like they do that stuff themselves. And some of them, like the Yankees, have Yes Network, so they have their own production. But I believe, like for a lot of them, they have like. They bring somebody in, like Showtime comes in, sets up shop for 2 days. And like the first day we're usually sharing space, which whoever was there the day before, we were sharing space with the circus, with the Ringling Brothers Circus one time. One time it was a Halsey concert right before. So you're sharing the space with all the Halsey people. Adam Lambert and Queen was there, and they were doing their sound check, and we were all listening to it. And they had a guy come and yell at us and was like, "You can't be here." And we're all like, we're people for Showtime. We have a boxing event tomorrow. Like, we're not trying to film. Like, we're not, like, we're just, we already are here. Like,
Yeah.
But, yeah, so it's kind of like they rent these venues out. But I think there's like a little minutia when it talks to like regional sports and like the Yankees have their own people and the Mets have their own people. And like when it breaks into that. But for like certain fights, like for like wrestling, WWE has their team that they bring in. That because they're like a moving circus and they go from city to city. So I think it depends on if you're set in one place or if you're a traveling.
Gotcha. Yeah, right. That must be a pretty cool experience though, being a part of that. Like I did a little volunteer job for someone for the Fortune 500 event, and the production company that they brought in to do all the filming. I mean, that was a pretty small event, but it was pretty fucking crazy. There's so much equipment and resources and people involved in all these things. It's huge living organisms, these businesses that just are so mobile, and everything gets packed up into boxes and they move to the next thing and set up, and you know, they take a week to set up and 2 days to pack up, and yeah, it's just wild. It's wild. It's pretty cool. Pretty amazing to see what humans have actually come up with. You know, and it takes so much teamwork, so much technology. And also, a lot of people just seem like they don't know what the fuck they're doing.
No. And it's amazing when, like, you have a bunch of people that don't seem like they know what they're doing yet. You're following everything to the T, and there was someone that knew what they were doing.
Yeah, that's right.
And as long as you follow that person, everything's going to work out.
Yeah.
But film productions like that too. Like a lot of people don't realize, like a movie is essentially like a business, a startup business that they start everything from scratch. They're their own company while they're in production, and then that company disappears.
That's crazy.
Like, yes, you're getting the money from the studio, or maybe you're an independent production, but the production itself is its own business. So it's essentially you're starting your own business every 3 to 6 months.
Jesus. Yeah, well, I have kind of noticed that because I'm on the backstage. Yeah, and I've noticed that like everything is like in their little companies, everything, but it's like you've never heard of most of these things. They must just like you say, just get set up shop, and then pack up shop. I wonder if it's a successful business though. Will they keep that like successful movie? Will they keep that business name and production company, or will they just literally demobilize it and literally set up another one?
So typically they'll keep the production company, but then it starts like it's like a different. It's under a different entity. It's like the production company oversees it, but it's a different business inside the company.
So there's no risk of it affecting the other movie.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are movies something that are going to eventually be a thing of the past?
I don't think so.
Because
it'll change, but it'll never go away.
The money's not the same in movies anymore, is it? Like, do they?
It isn't. It isn't.
Do they still make them?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No. Inside Out 2 this year made like $1.6 billion. Deadpool Wolverine made like $1.4 billion.
Okay, there's plenty.
So they're still there. It's just
they're not doing without.
The game has changed. Thanks to streaming and everything, the revenue and the ways they used to make money are changing, and everything is changing. And the problem is a lot of the contracts and everything aren't changing along with it. That's why you had such a big, long strike last year with the writers and the actors, because there's all these new things of people used to get residuals for a TV show. If you had a TV show that went 100 episodes, that's why like sitcom actors, like they used to be like, you'd be a comic, then you would get a sitcom. And if that sitcom ran for 100 episodes, you would get to be put in syndication, which means like it would run on TBS or like one of those other channels that wasn't the main channel. And if it gets in syndication, you're getting residuals out the ass for the rest of your life.
Wow.
Jerry Seinfeld doesn't have to work a day in his life if he doesn't want to because of the amount of money he made off of residuals for Seinfeld. Anybody from Friends, Everybody Loves Raymond, any of those shows, even shows that you don't even, like you never heard of, that ran for like 100 episodes, those people never had to work, and that has changed.
Do you think Jerry Seinfeld, like, he wrote that sitcom on his own, or do you think he had like a group of writers?
No, he had a group.
Yeah.
He had a group.
Comics?
So it was a mix. So Larry David, Curb Your Enthusiasm, he was like the big second hand. It was Jerry and Larry David from Curb Your Enthusiasm. David Mandel. There was a bunch of writers, and a lot of them spun off to doing other shows.
Wow.
That's usually what happens. Like, The Office spun off a bunch of people who spun off from something else. The show Scrubs, people spun off from that, and then the creator of that went on to do Ted Lasso and Shrinking, and then he works with other writers that then work with other writers. It's really cool seeing like these different groups that kind of like foster and then grow and get bigger. I feel like Flight of the Conchords was like that, like New Zealand guys. With Taika Waititi and stuff, and they did What We Do in the Shadows, and they were doing indie movies, and then Taika Waititi made a Thor movie, and then, you make big movies like that. Now they have carte blanche. They can make whatever they want. And they have all these crazy shows, and then they can make, Taika Waititi can make a movie where he plays Hitler in a boy's mind, and, like, do crazy stuff that gets nominated for Best Picture, but then do your fun Fly the Conchords stuff, so that's... You do one thing as a group, and then everybody gets to branch off and do their other things.
Yeah, hopefully someone in our group makes it somewhere.
Yeah, Cam, I got all my eggs in your basket. I don't know that one, Barrett. You might be waiting a while.
Can someone get a Netflix special that is my best friend? Please, one of the boys.
Just any of them. Just any boy. Just...
I really want to do the writing, like the sitcom stuff would be so fun in the future.
The way you started is we just have to start doing content and stuff together.
Yeah,
we'll just all start, like, one of us writes something and then we all star in it, and we all start doing stuff, because that's how it starts. That's how a lot of these guys, like Donald Glover, was doing videos with his friends on YouTube. where like there's a video, old YouTube video you can find from like before Donald Glover like got popular as a stand-up or he was Childish Gambino or anything, where he's Black Peter Pan and he goes in and all the white kids are like, I don't know if I want to trust you. And it's like an old 2010 video that was very clearly made like for YouTube. And like a lot of guys start off like that.
Yeah.
Like even Shane Gillis was doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like Tim Robinson was doing stuff like that. It's, you know, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, you do. You do. So what's your plans for 2025? You got any big goals?
So my main big goal is I've established myself where I'm happy with video, but I want to get more. And I'm happy where I am with comedy in only a year. Yeah. Like, that's the thing. Like, I know you get this too, where like you'll constantly be doing stuff and you'll be like, I should be doing more. Why am I not doing more?
That never ends.
Like, you'll have that like one day off and you're sitting at home and you're like, why am I not like writing? Why am I not doing a mic right now? Why, you know, so like, I feel like we have to realize like for where we are, like you've been doing it less than me in New York, and you're in my opinion you're doing way more than me. Like we have to realize like we're doing great. Like you're doing awesome, dude. Like you are killing it. You are crushing it. You're gonna keep doing it. You're gonna keep killing it. And like that's what I want to do is just consistency. Yeah, I want to keep the consistency. Like I'm hosting for Laughing Buddha now. I'm getting some barking gigs. I'm trying to get more shows. I would like to me and my dad are going to do a show. I would like to make that like a semi-regular thing.
That'd be great.
And then also I would like to, like what we were saying, I would like to start doing more like sketches, do like maybe a short, just more like I want to combine my love for filmmaking and video with my love of comedy.
Yeah, well, you're doing great too, man. Like you're very funny to watch.
Thank you.
You've fucking you got a great big personality on you. So use it to your advantage, man. And yeah, let's fucking go. Giddy up fucking 2025. Jesus Christ.
I know.
So what do you before we go, we still got some time.
We still got a little
We
bit
got
of time.
plenty of time. So give me some stories. I want to hear a fucking wild story.
All
Because
right.
you've grown up in New York. You were here through September 11. Just give me a couple of juicy ones. Or do you have anything off the top of your head?
Some good juicy stories. I mean, I think this was pre 9/11. I was 7 years old. I went to FAO Schwartz Toy Store, which is, if you've ever seen the movie Big with Tom Hanks, that's where they have the scene where they're playing chopsticks on the giant piano. I went there with my mom and her two best girlfriends and their kids. And we were in the princess area, and I wanted to go over the cowboy area because I'm a boy. I'm an only child. So I'm like, I'm going to go over the area. I was away for 2 minutes. My mom shut down the entire toy store.
What?
She shut down the entire toy store. And so it was like, my son's been kidnapped. It was like freaking out. And like, we always joke about this of like, if you did that 1 year later, everything is different. It was something you could laugh about because I just I went over the cowboy area. There was a nice dad with his kids. And he was like, oh, you want to be a cowboy? He put some cowboy stuff on me. I went over to my mom. My mom's freaking out because you have like my mom who's only has one kid, her best friend who has 3 kids, and then her other friend who doesn't actually have any kids. So it's like 3 very different kinds of women freaking out over a subject where one's like, oh, he's probably fine. The other 2 are like, this is the worst thing that could possibly happen. And they shut down the toy store, and I just come over. My mom's screaming at me, and I didn't hear, I still hear about it. And then we went to a restaurant called Mars 2112, which doesn't exist anymore, which I miss. They used to be like crazy themed restaurants in New York City. We don't have them anymore. It was designed like you're going to Mars. It's got a giant spaceship outside, and you go in, and it's like you're flying through a ship, and you go right past the Twin Towers. You zip right past it. And they kept that video up for like, I don't know, it's like 2011. Like 2010 until they closed. And we went there, and the whole time, anytime I went anywhere, my mom's like, you gotta stay within eyesight of me.
Yeah.
You gotta stay within eyesight of me at all times. And that became like a thing because I went off in the toy store. So
Jesus.
that's the first thing that pops in my head. It's just like me being a little nuisance as a child.
Fuck. Were you in trouble at school?
Oh yeah, I was a big so. In the second grade, they had a parent-teacher conference about me.
Really?
So they used to have this thing called the Scholastic Book Fair, which Scholastic is a kids' book publisher. And they would go to different schools, and the book fair was essentially like they would set up a little bookstore. And like you'd have a catalog, you'd bring it home like a couple days before. Your parents would be like, oh, you buy this, this, and this. Here's the money. And then you go and you get the stuff. I loved the animated show Hey Arnold. And there was some books connected to it, and I really wanted them. My parents told me no. And like, no, you're going to get this educational book. And I'm like, I don't want this. And I don't know how I did it, but I somehow hustled the children into I somehow convinced like 2 other kids, oh, you don't want that book, you want this book. And then bartered with another kid, oh, you don't want that book, you want this book, until I got the books I wanted. And I'm at home reading my books, having a good time. And then my parents call me and like, they had a parent-teacher conference back in 07.
What?
And they're like, did you hustle children out of their reading books at the Scholastic Book Fair? And I'm like, I wanted what I wanted.
Jesus Christ.
So like I was a little nuisance. Like I was doing Ocean's 11 shit at like 7 years old.
Fucking hell. Swindle a fucking deal.
Oh no, I love stuff like that.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, no, I jumped out of a window on the first floor of my school when I was in 6th grade.
What?
I got suspended, and then I tried saying I was pushed. I was like, no, I was pushed. And they're like, no, you weren't pushed. They're like, we have witnesses that say that you just were in a bad mood and you jumped out the window.
Jesus.
And the worst part was I jumped out of the window, and then I was just standing there. I didn't know what to do, so I just let me back in and then got detention. Like, it's not like I ran away. I just like stood there. I'm like, all right, I did it. What do I do now? I jumped out the window. Like it's one of those things where it's like a dog chasing a car. You don't know what you're gonna do when you get the car. Like you just
Jesus
like,
Christ.
all right, I guess I'm in trouble now. But yeah, no, I was an only child.
Yeah.
So being an only child, I think makes you I think it explains why I'm so outgoing and like so boisterous and like loud and stuff, because of the fact that like I'm an only child. So like you put me in a room, I'm just like, I want attention because I don't have siblings. You know, it's one of those things. But like being an only child, my parents had me in their my mom was in her early 40s, my dad was in his late 30s. I was a mistake.
Really?
I was the product of a drunken night on Fire Island in Long Island. My parents were dating, but I was not planned. And I think that explains my entire life.
Really?
My whole life is unplanned. My whole life is unplanned.
Well, that's kind of rings true to a lot of people, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or oftentimes when we make plans, they never end up happening the way we intend.
No.
That's life.
And, you know, I think that's something I've learned to live with, too. Like, I think you can get so stressed out about, like, 1,000 things at once. But what you can only you can only control what you can control. And that's something, like, the past couple of years I've really tried to, like, hammer home in my head. And I've tried to tell other people of, like, you can only control your outcome, what you're doing. The outside factors, you can stress about it.
Yeah.
But whether or not you stress about it, those outside factors are still going to happen.
Yeah.
Those things are still going to hit you. One time I was working at a restaurant and I knew they were going to fire me. I knew I was going to get fired from this restaurant. I just started working there. They pretty much just hired me for the holidays. And I had this feeling in the pit of my stomach. I started stressing out. And I'm like, wait, why are you freaking out about this? One, you don't even want to be working in restaurants. You want to be working in video. This is what you want to be doing. You can't control whether or not you go into work and you're going to get fired today. What you can control is what you're doing right now. So I immediately went on Indeed, started applying to jobs. The first job I applied to, they hired me, and I worked for them for a year, pretty much running their video department.
Jeez.
And working with a bunch of clients. And that then jumped me into having the clients that I now have today. So if I didn't make that decision of I can only focus on myself and what can I do to make myself feel better, I can apply to jobs and be proactive. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me. If I didn't get laid off from that job and let go, then I might still be working in restaurants. Because that was a few years ago. And that was when I went, okay, restaurants were great. Restaurants were awesome to me. I think that everyone should work in a restaurant. for 6 months to a year really teaches you a lot about people, teaches you a lot about patience, teaches you a lot of everything. How to handle chaos. But I was like, I need to put that behind me. I need to focus on video. And then I started doing full-time real estate videography, stuff like that. And once I started doing that, I didn't look back. And then it's just focusing on what can I do next?
Yeah.
You know?
Good on you, man. Well, everyone, we're going to wrap this up in a minute, but this is the big man, the Ryan Rizzuti. You've heard him. Give us your socials, Ryan.
All right. I am Ryan Rizzuti, funny filmmaker on Instagram. Ryan Rizzuti Comedy, I believe, on TikTok. And, just find me. I'm everywhere. I also have a YouTube channel, Let Me Be Critic. I haven't posted it to a while, but I do like video essays about TV shows where you can hear me wax poetic about like Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip and stuff like that.
Nice, man. Well, Ryan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for all your help with the podcast so far.
Of course. Honestly, dude, it is my absolute pleasure to help bring like your vision to reality. And I love doing this podcast with you.
Thanks, man. You're a fucking legend. I love that. See you on the next one, guys. Hey, guys. Thanks for listening to this episode of Going After It with Cam Bird. Produced by Ryan Rizzuti and music by the very talented Brian Rigby. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe, and remember to hit that notification bell. Take care, everyone, and if you can, get after it.